Every single day we put our trust in this invisible defense system. It guards our money, our secrets, our identities. We call it information security. But what exactly is it defending against? And how do you actually build one of these digital fortresses? Well, that's what we're here to figure out.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to scout the enemy and figure out what's actually attacking our data. Then, we'll establish our core mission, the 3 pillars of protection. After that, we'll drop the blueprint for our fortress, start putting up the layers of defense, and finally, we'll get down to the nitty-gritty of security in every single keystroke.
All right, first things first. Before you can build a defense, you have to know what you're fighting. And believe me, the threats to our information are constant, they're creative, and sometimes they come from right where you'd least expect them. Let's just ask the big question right up front. Is your information really safe? It sounds simple, right? But the answer is, well, it's complicated. Because the second you go online, your data becomes a target. The real question isn't if it's a target, but are you ready for what's coming?
Attacks aren't always some big, dramatic explosion. A lot of the time, they're quiet, sneaky. A hacker might just use a simple web form to slip in some malicious code. Or, get this, a programmer could tweak some code to shave off a fraction of a penny from millions of transactions and send it to their own account. It's so small nobody notices until it adds up to a fortune. And of course, there's the blunt approach. Someone just gets into a database and changes grades, or quietly copies thousands of social security numbers.
And then you've got the more in-your-face threats. You could have a disgruntled employee who decides to sabotage the company website, or worse, plant a logic bomb that's set to go off long after they're gone. We've all seen phishing emails, right? Those fake messages from your bank trying to get your password. And let's not forget simple physical theft. Losing a laptop is a huge data breach waiting to happen. The common thread for a lot of these? Malware, the catch-all term for nasty software. So let's take a quick trip through the malware zoo. A virus is kind of like the flu. It needs a host, like an email attachment, to spread from one computer to another. A worm, though, is self-sufficient. It just copies itself like crazy across the network, clogging everything up until it all grinds to a halt. The Trojan horse is the classic con. It looks like a cool free game, but it's secretly stealing your data. Spyware is exactly what it sounds like. It spies on you, sometimes even recording every single thing you type. And then there's the big one, ransomware. It's digital kidnapping. It locks up all your files and demands money. And it can paralyze anyone from a single person to an entire hospital. Okay, so that's the scary stuff. We've seen the enemy. So what's our actual goal here? What are we trying to protect? When it comes to information security, it all boils down to 3 core principles. Just remember CIA. No, not that one. We're talking confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality is all about keeping secrets. Simple as that, making sure only the right people can see the information. Integrity means that the data is accurate and trustworthy, that nobody has messed with it. And availability means that when you're authorized to get to that data, it's actually there for you. Pretty much every security measure you can think of is designed to serve at least one of these 3 pillars. So with that mission clear, you can't just start throwing up walls and hoping for the best, right? You need a plan, a blueprint. A smart, methodical way to build your defenses from the ground up. And it generally happens in 5 steps. First, you identify the threats, all the bad things that could happen. Then, you figure out the risks. This means you weigh how likely each threat is against how much damage it could do. For instance, a massive data breach might be unlikely, but the damage would be catastrophic. Based on that, you design specific controls to handle those risks. Then you pull it all together into one big plan. And finally, you establish clear policies so everyone knows the rules of the road.
Okay, we've got our blueprint. Now, what are we actually building with? What are the materials? See, a really strong fortress isn't just one big wall. It has layers, multiple layers of defense. The first big distinction you gotta understand is between physical and logical controls. Think of it this way. Physical controls are the actual castle walls, the locked doors, the security guards. They stop someone from just walking in and stealing a server. Logical controls are the secret passwords and magic spells inside the castle. The passwords, the permissions, the encryption, they control access to the data itself. And you absolutely need both. A super strong password doesn't mean a thing if someone can just pick up the hard drive and walk out. And these physical castle walls are more than just locked doors. We're talking about things like keypads and security cards to get into the building. It's also environmental stuff, like fire suppression systems to protect the hardware.
It even covers how you get rid of old equipment. You can't just throw a hard drive in the dumpster. Even something as simple as your computer automatically logging you off when you walk away. That's a physical control. It protects your machine from someone just walking up to it.
Okay, so once someone gets past the physical defenses, the system asks two really important questions. The first one is authentication. Are you who you say you are? This is all about proving your identity. Once it's sure, it asks the second question. Authorization. Okay, we know who you are. Now, what are you allowed to do? This is all about your permissions.
Authentication usually comes down to one of three things. Something you know, like a password or a PIN, something you have, like a security badge or, more commonly these days, your phone for a two-factor code, and finally, something you are. This is the cool biometric stuff like your fingerprint or Face ID. The really strong systems will always mix at least two of these together. So, once you're in, authorization takes over. This works on a principle called least privilege. Basically, you only get the keys to the rooms you absolutely need to do your job. And that's it. For example, a clerk in accounting might be able to see a customer's credit limit, but they're not authorized to change it. Only their manager can do that. You can even authorize specific devices, so a computer on the factory floor can't be used to get into the accounting system, even if you have the CEO's password. All right, now we're at the deepest layer of our fortress. These are the automated guards that are always on duty, watching the data as it moves through the system, checking it at every single step. It all starts with input controls. Think of these like a bouncer at a club, checking IDs at the door before letting anyone in. You've got online controls, which check data in real time as you're typing it. And then you have batch controls, which look at a whole group of data after it's been gathered up, but before it gets processed.
You see these online controls all the time without even thinking about it. A field check is what stops you from putting letters in a phone number field. A limit check would raise a red flag if an employee tried to enter 25 hours on a timesheet for a single day. There are even clever little algorithms called check digits that can tell if you've made a typo in a long serial number. And a simple drop-down menu is a control. It makes it impossible for you to enter an invalid choice.
Now, once the data is actually in the system, processing controls act like behind-the-scenes fact checkers. A validation check makes sure an invoice is for a real vendor that's actually in the master file before it gets paid. A completeness check will reject a submission if, say, a shipping address is missing. And arithmetic controls just do the math, double-checking that all the columns and rows in a financial report add up the way they're supposed to. And finally, we have what might be the most important output control of all, the audit trail. You can think of this as the system's indestructible logbook. It records everything: who logged in, what data they touched, when they did it, and what the result was. It's the complete, undeniable digital footprint of all activity. And that brings us to our last thought. Building a digital fortress isn't a one-time job. It's about constantly managing the digital footprints that we all leave behind. An audit trail logs every single one of those footprints, which is great, but it's only useful if somebody is actually watching it. So I'll leave you with this question. Who's watching yours?